I'm James Jones, web content writer for Bioware, and you are listening to TORSyndicate.
Hey, this is Brian Art, senior video editor for Bioware, and you're listening to the super awesome TORSyndicate.
You are listening to a Star Wars The Old Republic community podcast. This is the TORSyndicate.
And welcome to episode 43 of the TORSyndicate Community Podcast, being recorded on January 10th, 2012. Happy New Year, everybody. And yes, I am aware that New Year's was probably a good 2 weeks or more ago by the time you're listening to this. But it's the first show we've recorded this year, so it's New Year's for us. Now, for those of you who don't already know me or my OMG, is he still talking show introductions? My name is Baraslan, the guild leader of the Mantel Syndicate, the Old Republic's role-playing home to the galaxy's best scoundrels, scum, and scruffy-looking nerf herders, and I am one of many hosts here on the TORSyndicate. Also on the show, Mr. I've Never Missed an Episode himself, leader of Guild Umbra and co-founder of the TORSyndicate, and recent owner of a level 50 Sith who has actually earned the title Lord. It is LordHammer.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much. That was a really good intro.
Thank you.
Although, I do have to break you on one thing. I think this is actually episode 44.
Yeah.
You're
I was going to say it.
But I got nothing but love for you, man. And I do want to say that now that I have my level 50, it's a totally different game, and I'm totally like a noob all over again. Because I hit 50, I went into PvP, and I just started melting all over the place. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell, man? And all of my quote-unquote newfound peers, like our other co-host, Mr. Virtek here, all have all the level 50 PvP gear. And so I just got there, and I'm the now noob. But saying that, let me go and introduce Virtek, the producer of the show. Welcome, sir. How you doing?
Phantasmal. How you guys doing? Oh, yeah, we already covered that.
Yes.
Cobra!
Except for the part where I apparently can't count. So.
And I have to say Cobra because his new helmet makes him look like Cobra Commander.
And it's fantastic.
It is pretty pumped, though.
Yeah, that's all right. If you're going to repeat any numbers, 42
look like
is all
a
right.
droid.
It does look like a droid.
Yeah, kind of.
Anyway, what have you been up to this week, man?
Ooh, a whole lot of fun stuff. Been working around with the TGN guys, Mr. Awall, doing actually getting ready to jump into that Project TOR video cast with him this week. Yay, with him and you.
Very cool.
Recording a bunch of videos for them. Been busy with that. Rendering.
Did you do the Boom Sucker cast?
Yeah. We got
How's that?
Oh, that's fun. I got to learn how to talk more while I'm playing because I found it's really difficult to actually play and have a discussion and say anything that means a darn thing besides yeah, and do that, or get over here. Like actually talking about what you're doing is a little bit trickier than it sounds.
I can't do it at all. It's a much different game as a melee player than it is as range, so he'll learn that if he ever starts playing Sith. But we also have some guests, very distinguished in the WoW community. You want to go ahead and introduce them?
Absolutely. So the first guest we have here is Stompolina from RAWRcast. And how are you today, ma'am?
Fantabulous. I was so excited because they got really nice intros, and I'm like, here she is. She showed up and logged in.
Yeah, who's that over in the corner there, Virtek?
Oh, well, some lady. She was walking around.
She was out at the bus stop, holding up a sign. Felt bad for her. Brought her on the show.
That's all right. We give her a blank.
Will work for Tor.
For sure.
Oh wait, what was your little note you had there on Skype? Will work for mood. Was that what that said?
Yeah, whenever I hit new people up on Skype and they give me their name and I send them a message that says, "Me love you long time, boom boom."
Nice. Stompolina. And who else do we have?
Stomp, I'll go ahead and let you introduce your guest here as well.
Well, I wanted to sound halfway educated on this, my first guest on an Old Republic podcast. So I brought with me the first level 50 in the guild, I guess it was last week, Stirrin. He's a longtime member of the guild, active listener, participated in the community for a long time. So welcome, Stirrin.
Good evening. How's it going, guys?
Doing very well, very well. And congratulations on making 50.
Hey,
Thank you,
Stirrin,
thank you.
what'd you 50 with?
I actually initially rolled a Jedi before I realized
a Jedi. Gosh.
Well,
You and your
I
Force
at first
user
didn't realize that Baum was playing TOR, so I rolled a Jedi at first. But I quickly, changed paths. I only reached 25 before I re-rolled a Sith Sorcerer. And so that was the first tune that I got to 50. And
So it's like you're 75.
He's the first 75 in your guild?
Totally.
He's got 75 of Force-using characters, so.
I'm thinking the 25 levels in Jedi should actually be counteractive. He's really level 25 now.
Oh, there you go.
Aw.
Like light side, dark side points, they
Exactly.
neutralize each other.
He's leveling backwards. So, okay. So, Stompolina, welcome to the show. Why don't you briefly tell the SWTOR community who you are and what it is you do?
Well, I've been a goblin for the last year and a half or so, playing World of Warcraft. Actually, I've been playing WoW for all the 7 years. And in that time, my husband and I actually started podcasting about 3 years ago now. And it started out as a Star Wars podcast specifically. We also play other games. We talk about other games too. And right now, he's still playing WoW, and now I'm playing Star Wars. My WoW account actually expired last week. So it's kind of nice to have a dueling perspective, and he's a grumpy old cuss, and I'm me.
So tell us about the cast that you guys used to do, or you still do.
Yeah, we still do it. It's just kind of changed from what the description is on iTunes, I guess you could say. But it's just about me and my husband and us playing games and MMOs together. We also have a 12-year-old son. And from time to time, he joins the show and reviews a game that he plays, too. So it's more about us than it always necessarily is about the game. But that's what people listen for. So it's what happens to happen from week to week. One week we did an entire 20-minute segment on repairing the toilet. So it's anything we talk about, really.
It's important stuff there.
It was groundbreaking. That was actually the first week we actually lost subscribers.
Wow.
So you got extra points in home repair podcasts or something. So
yeah, there's no achievement for being. There's no achievement for being covered and up to your elbow. Oh, it happened. I knew it would.
Nice. So basically,
you were covered up to your elbow. I think you were fixing the toilet wrong.
It wasn't me. Luckily, it was Halfrod that was covered, and yes, he was.
That's nice.
That sounds more like something like septic tank.
You may have lost subscribers, but you got more direct links from Home Depot.
This show
New
is sponsored by Home Depot and Lowe's. Roto-Rooter, proud sponsor of RAWRcast.
They should have been. Would have saved some time.
So you said you were playing WoW for 7 years.
Yep.
Was that MMO able to? I mean, and that's a very successful MMO, and I think it's the most successful one, and it has to be respected as such. I mean, did it keep your interest all 7 years, or did you stay playing that long just because you had such a large amount of friends and it was a social element to your life?
That is a fantastic question. That's a really tearing question. The thing about it is one of the reasons that we started the podcast is because my husband and I were 25-man rating at the time, starting out in ICC, and it was frustrating because we were in a guild where we weren't heard, and we tried to communicate, and people just weren't very receptive to us trying to do what we knew how to do best, which is, step up and help. And nobody was really receptive. So one of the reasons we started the podcast is because I needed a place to vent. I was tired of being cooped up, and he was the one that was always getting the grunt of my disdain for people just being idiots sometimes. So in starting the podcast, I was able to vent, got it all out there, and then we ended up leaving that guild because it disbanded and going somewhere else. And long story short, what started out as the podcast ended up being our guild, because we had enough listeners at that point where people wanted to come play with us because they knew what we were kind of building the guild upon. So long story short, to answer your question, it's the people that we played with that kept us playing for 7 years and continue to keep us playing, because that guild is now carrying over into Star Wars, the Old Republic.
So
very cool.
The origin, I assume you're talking about Bound Guild, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So what was the
Bound
origin
Guild.
of that name?
.com.
Just because that seems like
The origin of Bound. Oh, well, once you get to know me, I'm kind of a sick and weird chick. And I'm into, well, I don't want to go down that path. But Bound is actually branded and kind of designed around S&M. And so different ranks in the guild are different types of fetishes and things that people are into. So like we have a rank that's Marquis is the guild leader. We have Ruthless, which is a type of S&M term. Lunar, which is people that are into balloon fetishes, things like that. So there's your answer. More than you probably cared to know.
I'll tell you what, I did not see that coming. You're right.
So it's theme based.
It is.
And that's your theme.
The thing about it is I'm a marketing and advertising person. That's kind of why I've built a brand around the podcast, and I also wanted to build a brand around the guild, because it's a 21 and over guild. We're very out there, loud, rude, everything that we are on the show, but there's 60 of us all at one time. So it's a good fit because it's my personality, and those are the same type of listeners that we have.
And that's kind of cool because you built a community with like-minded people to share the experiences that you wanted to have, and obviously you're not alone. There are other people, regardless of how many or how few there are, but there are people who are like you, who share the same interests, the same likes, the same dislikes, and have the same things in common. And so you created a forum and a place for them to unite, and that's awesome, because I can only imagine that the satisfaction you get after an evening of hanging with like-minded people, as opposed to just the frustration like you just described of dealing with noobs or just idiots, and in your term, right?
Right, exactly. One of the things that we definitely built the guild upon is the fact that we have to communicate with one another. If you go out and read our mission statement and our charter and everything, it's based upon a community of constant development. The only way that any teams ever succeed, especially in 25-man raiding or whatever it is that we're going to end up doing in the Old Republic, it's all built upon being able to communicate with one another. And the best way to do that is to just not get butthurt when somebody says, hey, look, man, we got to work on your DPS, because that's the kind of stuff that wasn't happening in those other guilds that frustrated us so much. So we took the years of experience that we had in other guilds and all the stuff that didn't happen that I wanted to happen, and we set forth the guild, with all that experience behind us.
You know what's also great with how you have it set up is that's the ultimate zip it button right there. It's pre-built in. You can just tell somebody, okay, so you joined through the website, but did you even listen to the podcast at all? Do you have no idea what we're about?
That's exactly right. I spent months building that site, and if you go out there, it's laid out really plain and simple about what we're all about and what to expect from us and what we expect from them. So I enjoy doing it, and the great thing is that I don't feel right now like I have to log into WoW. I mean, my subscription actually just expired, which I'm okay with, because I feel like I've got a great management team and half over there running stuff. I'm ready to pick up the ball and bring some Star Wars into it.
Awesome. So on that note, you guys, I assume, then have a Bound SWTOR guild as well, then?
Correct.
What's the URL for that guild? Or is
it's
it all
the same?
It's all
boundguild.com.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And out of curiosity, I was wondering what the scuttlebutt about the Old Republic might be in the other MMO communities, because I know you guys, from what I've read of your podcast, cover things other than just WoW. You've got other games and stuff that you talk about and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of curious how fans of other games have been talking about TOR or what they've been saying.
Sure.
And obviously there's some folks that have made a move, and that's where their focus is right now, even though they might still have a love for WoW in the background. Their focus now is on the Old Republic. So just kind of curious what you're hearing in the community.
Over to Stirrin. Stirrin, do you have an opinion on what people's perspective is?
I've been browsing our guild's website as well as the SWTOR website, and from our guild's standpoint, it really seems like a lot of people are comparing TOR to their previous experiences with MMOs, especially World of Warcraft, since it is one of the most popular ones out there. A lot of people, notice certain flaws in the game, which it just was released. It's it's to be expected that it's not going to be 100%. And there's actually discussion on who's going to continue after the first month of subscription. Once we actually have to start paying month by month. And a lot of people are bringing up things such as the ability delay in the game and stuff like that has been mentioned on the TOR forums that they're addressing with a future patch and whatnot. It's just not in the game yet. And it's especially a factor in PvP for certain people that are extremely PvP heavy. And even on the TOR forums, it's the same way. There's a lot of people that are, doing side-by-side comparisons with WoW and, not really given, in my opinion, Bioware the credit that they should. The fact that Warcraft's been out for years. They've had plenty of time and plenty of developers and plenty of people to work on it to be able to, redefine it as the years go by, and other MMOs come out with different things to bring to the games. So I think that, in my personal opinion, the Bioware's doing a really good job, and they're definitely spending a lot of time, trying to get everything up to speed and to get everyone as happy as can be. But it really seems like a lot of people are comparing it to WoW right now. So.
And that's not surprising. Like Hammer said at the beginning of the podcast, I mean, WoW is the benchmark by which MMOs are measured pretty much now, because it has had a very successful run and is still having a successful run. So, I mean, that's not surprising at all. Like you said, that. Oh, go ahead, Stomp.
Well, I was going to think. I think that everybody can pretty much agree with the fact that the Old Republic today would not be what it is today if it hadn't been for the last 7 years of WoW. I mean, to log in and feel like intuitively that it already feels right, that's because WoW was like my starter game, and now I'm ready for a grown-up game. It's just different,
Wow. No pun intended.
Well, I will also say this much in comparison, that there have been a lot of occasions where I go to do something and it's not there, and I'm like, okay, patches, come faster. Like the guild bank and all these different windows popping up. Yeah, it just, some of it isn't right yet, but it's going to be there. I'll tell you what, in comparison to where WoW was at launch and months after launch, Bioware has definitely made far progress from where Blizzard was.
And that's the comparison a lot of people forget. And Stirrin kind of hinted at that in what he was just saying, is, WoW has been fine-tuning for, good on a decade almost, and we've got... Now, by the same token, you should be able to learn from the mistakes of MMOs that came before you, and hopefully incorporate those up front. And I know that's some of the things that Hammer has shared on other shows. It's a frustration that some of the things that are missing right now, we feel like, wow, we're in 2012 and we've had, a decade of MMOs already, and there's a lot of things that we feel like should have been learned but haven't been implemented yet. And yes, Bioware is getting to them ASAP, but we were a little surprised we didn't.
They were busy voicing over all of this stuff.
That's true. They're like in the World Book of Records now. Did you guys see that in the developers post? They made the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, and it's been completely helpful because I turned it down all the way where I can't hear it.
They did all that work and you turned it down?
It was awesome for like the first 3 days, and then I'm spacebar.
You're one of those people.
Well, one of the bad things about having the, all the quest dialogue being voiced is the fact that it's difficult to be able to have conversation with guild members in an event.
Absolutely,
and that's one of the things that we really, like to do, because I was with Bound back in Warcraft, and that was one of the things that I really liked about the guild, was the fact that there's a lot of people on event talking and whatnot, getting to learn other people and talk to them and everything. And it's really difficult to do in Tor. It's easier once you hit max level and you're not worrying about the quest dialogue so much, and you're doing PvPs, you're doing hard modes or whatever. But as you're leveling, you really don't want to sit and vent and have the conflict between the two. So
Yeah,
So you could just turn it down.
We use TeamSpeak in Guild Umber. We like it a little bit better, but it has this function, and I'm sure Vent has it. I just don't know what it is. To just click a button where you can mute it so you can hear the game, but you don't have to hear people in Vent or TeamSpeak. And I stay on that thing because I'm sitting there listening to every single speech. I got to hear the whole entire thing because I got to get every second of story out of this. But kind of like when I was like in the last 2 levels before I hit 50, I was kind of like, all right, come on, let's go.
Getting antsy at the end.
It's bad enough I have to run everywhere. Come on, I got time. Let's go. I got things to do.
Oh,
so
you got speeder action by now, surely.
Yeah, but still.
So why Tor?
I'm not on a mount.
So why Tor? As opposed to anything else, what was so compelling about SWTOR? I mean, other than Star Wars is obviously a very well-known IP.
Well, a lot of it had to do with the fact that so many former WoW members of Bound are going to Star Wars, so why not make them home for them? Because over the years, we've had people that have come and gone, and people that are interested in other games. Hell, we have a Steam community with guild members that are logging in and out. So I just wanted to make sure to keep that sense of community. And if it's a new MMO and it's something that's going to be easy to pick up, why not go play with my friends? I can't tell you how, oh, wow, I got over emotional in my first Battlegrounds in the Old Republic because I was playing with guys that I was in ICC with. And I'm a healer. I'm playing Operative right now. And I was healing the guy that was my main tank in ICC, and I haven't seen him, or I knew how he moved. I knew whenever he went out of line of sight what I needed to say, how I needed to say. It was just so intuitive that it's like family all over again.
I heard a little tear falling.
Shut up.
I heard it. I love you, man.
Pity.
but that's so. I mean, that's so the case. I mean, and not to steal any thunder, but it's for those exact same reasons was the whole reason why I started, Guild Umber. It was, I had a bunch. I played Age of Conan 2 years longer than I should have. Because that game sucked, right?
Yeah.
There were some things that were really good about it, that were enjoyable, called the first 20 levels. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it was just the camaraderie of the guild.
Everything was brown.
Yes, they were very brown.
Yeah. But like I said, I mean, there were just a couple of friendships that I made in that game that I've stayed friends with them to this day, and it was those folks that I stayed playing that stupid game. And when I founded my guild, I came up just like word for word, like you said. I had a charter, I had a mission statement, standards, very well published policies, so that we didn't have, or we could minimize the guild drama, right? Because I wanted to be around people that were kind of like myself, just so that I had things to talk to them about, and I could have interaction, as opposed to just people that are just completely different. And it's not that I'm xenophobic or I have anything against anybody's different, but I would like, sometime during the 4 hours I game a night or whatever, to have some interaction that's familiar. So, that's awesome. I think that's so the way to do things, as opposed to I see now when I log in, in general chat, hi, X guild is forming. We're looking for raiders. We're going to be doing in-game content. I'm like,
well, don't knock it. We all had. Well, I was at that point at one time until I've been really lucky with doing the podcast to have this community of guys that I'm able to play with. But yeah,
not to say that those can't be successful, but you built your foundation with brick and mortar as opposed to building a house with tuna fish sandwiches. I mean, you could build a house with tuna fish sandwiches, but I wouldn't want to go to the second floor of that thing.
Okay, that's the first time I think I've ever heard tuna fish sandwiches used as an analogy for guild strength. So
I didn't have a response for that.
yeah, so,
I was trying to think of one myself.
Oh God.
But no, see,
Hey.
I know what you're saying there. Like actually building the guild ideals first, and then forming it around that versus the ones that are literally their sole purpose in life is to advertise in like trade chat or general chat to try to get members, and that's the only way they pull people in.
yeah, I
We
love
run the
those
guild
kids
like a
when I log in
business.
and like 5 minutes after I log in, somebody say, "Hey, you want to join my guild?" Dude, I have no idea who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, is that how
happens.
you're recruiting?
We run the guild a lot like a business. I did set it up like a business. There's a business plan every month we have guild meetings. We talk about goals and strategy and things that we need to work on. I mean, the thing is that I'm a planner. I'm an organizer. I'm a strategist, and that's what I lend to all of our members' experience is the fact that I am the spirit. I'll ring lead. I'll get everybody together. Go, get them. I'm back here. Y'all take care of that.
Nice. So Mark, if I could just, or Siren, if I could just jump on you real quick. What is it that attracted you to the Bound Guild and has kept you there for so long?
Actually, when I stumbled across Stomp in Half and the Bound Guild was through the podcast. I was right smack dab in the middle of my WoW addiction, and I was looking for podcasts to listen to on the way to work. It was a fad that I was going through at the time that I wanted to listen to podcasts to and from work because I had about a 30 to 45-minute commute. And so I stumbled across their podcast and I was listening to it. And I've listened to other WoW podcasts before, like WoW Insider and stuff. But what really drew me to their podcast was the fact that they were very real. They had good information, but it was still, they still were having a lot of fun. There was a lot of humor in the podcast, and it set itself apart. And so I was drawn in by that. And right around the same time, the guild that I was with wasn't really doing so well. And they eventually mentioned the fact that they were looking for new raiders. And so I jumped right on the chance and threw in an application to talk to them for a while and had a chance to raid with them a little bit. So I really think that the podcast was the main reason why I was drawn into the guild. And then since then, just, the community is what's, wanted me to stay with Bound. Because if there's one thing that I learned in Warcraft when raiding is the fact that you can't just focus on the game. You can't just focus on the gear. If you're a gear hound and that's all you're doing is raiding to get gear and there's no interaction, there's no community, there's no people, it feels really empty. And when you're gaming, even if you're not even reaching your goals of trying to, down the last boss or finish these heroics or whatever, as long as you're playing with your friends and having fun, that's all that really matters. And when you actually have real connections with people in your guild, even if you get a chance to meet them in person and stuff, that means so much more than anything the game can provide, in my opinion. It's the community. So
I could just tear it up a little.
It's so funny. I couldn't agree more because it's so transparent when you find the gear whore or the loot whore, whatever they call it. And I actually wrote it in as one of our policies is no player hating.
Yep.
Be happy for fellow members that are good at the game and win loot and have a great time. There are those people who I have actually seen like officers in my old guild, in Age of Conan, that would not invite certain people that had certain classes because they didn't want to run the risk of that person bidding on loot that they could use.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's effed up, and you could probably get away with it, I guess, here and there, but that becomes transparent very quickly. So that's awesome. Doing it for the social, the social community building, because those are the times that will carry you through when the game starts to suck. And there's always that time when, and sucks probably not the right word, but when, the game becomes played or dated, or you've done every single thing that you can do, and for whatever reason, you just are either impatient or they just haven't come out with that next patch with new content,
I know
And
what you mean. Yep,
so
Siren's already been running me through flashpoints, so I get what you mean.
Yeah. He's like, oh, nothing else to do.
But isn't it fun, Siren, to run me through flashpoints?
I thought it was really interesting where I only had to be like 10 levels above where I was helping people out, and I was already, resisting everything and just blasting everything to smithereens. So it's kind of fun.
Well, there's a certain satisfaction in that. Come on. I mean.
Oh, yeah. When you're able to just go up and just throw out a force storm and just level everything, you really feel like the dark evil Sith that you're playing.
Yeah, he just kind of turn around with people behind and say, just stay here, I got this. Just walk up and unleash. No destructive
I was pretending
power.
to heal him.
So what are some of the things that you're hoping as a guild or as a podcast? And this is probably a very open-ended question. What are some of the things you're hoping to do or experience or expand now that you are kind of focusing on Tor and your husband's still in WoW? I mean, do you see it staying a podcast that talks about these two MMOs, or do you see it shifting or slanting and becoming more Tor-centric? Where do you see it going?
Well, the podcast is more about us than it is about any one game.
Right.
Because these aren't the only two games we play. We talk about other games too, and we have contributors on the podcast that do segments that talk about retro games and free games and stuff like that. So as far as what I see getting out of Tormo is what I call it, by the way. Tormo. It's going to catch on. I know it will.
What is Tormo?
The Old Republic MMO. It's a lot easier to say than SWTOR. Anyways, what...
You have to put an O in there. It's SWTOR.
With the whoa and SWTOR.
It still sounds like I'm drooling on myself. That's not okay.
No.
I just say
Tor. Yeah.
I just say Tor, the Old Republic. But
Okay.
whatever. That's cool.
So-
Tormo. I'm good with it.
I don't know. Tormo sounds like
it's going to catch on. I'm telling you.
Total Tormo, man.
So what I want, or what we probably want to get out of Tormo, is just building upon the community, like-minded folks. One of the things that I've had the luxury of being able to do through doing the podcast is I host a meetup every month. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And through doing the meetup, we meet people that are here locally that, if they have an interest in what our guild is doing, then 9 times out of 10, they join the guild. And there's nothing like being able to sit down over drinks and talk to somebody about, what's going on in the guild, things they need to work on, things that they can contribute with, things like that. And we actually just started a DFW SWTOR meetup group too. So I'll give you a link to that whenever we leave, along with all the other stuff that I do. But what I was going to say is the benefit of doing that is being able to build that community of people through the meetup groups, through the podcast, and everybody has a role and something that they can bring to projects that we're working on, stuff that's happening in game. It's just all about building that community around, your personality and people that get along together.
So your next meeting will have to be at Whataburger since you're in Texas. Don't mess with Texas.
Whataburger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of mustard. I'm sorry.
I love.
We just got
Whataburger.
In and Out here. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I saw it when I was there in Austin. Baraslan and I were down in Austin for the last Bioware fan summit
And
when
we
they
made sure
first.
that before we left, we went to Whataburger.
Yeah, Whataburger's pretty cool. But no,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of mustard, so not my favorite.
Anywho, so is there anything that you have coming up that you want the folks to know about?
Thanks for asking. Well, actually, we've been doing the podcast now for over 3 years. And in that time, we actually got our very first equipment from a listener donation. We've been just barely getting by. And here, 3 years later, we're actually about to upgrade to video. And this is a huge step because I've lost weight and it's actually going to work. So we're actually raising money. And if you visit RAWRcast.com, you can check out all of the previous videos that we've put together. And we're trying to get it to where Half and I are on the same screen right next to each other. I know it sounds like a small thing, but it takes software and all kinds of other stuff. So I would encourage anybody to go check out the website. And we actually just made RAWRcast into a channel. So it's not just the RAWRcast show. Now we have other podcasts. So one of the other ones that's just been added is Geek Culture Happy Hour, and it's guildies, Andy Pants and Fondre, and they talk about pop culture stuff. There's actually a theme every week. It's pretty cool because they come up with different types of mediums that all have to do with a theme. It's pretty neat. And then the new one that's starting later this month is me and my female best friend, She Geek Girl, and it's going to be called the Hot Taco Lounge. Yes, that's right. Hot Taco Lounge.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Just saying. But that's about it. Website upgrades, things like that, ongoing, as you guys, I'm sure, know.
Now, when you talk about like going to video, are you talking about having like a live stream or a video podcast that you then post edit?
No, it's actually going to be a video podcast. We record live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central at rawrcast.com/live. And during the live show, right now we've got it to where I'm on one feed and then Half's on Tiny Chat. Well, we need some software that puts the two of us right together. So that's what we're working on. And then once we get past that hurdle...
You can use XSplit. You can use XSplit for free.
I'm on Mac.
Oh. They don't have XSplit?
No. I've tried everything, trust me.
All right, sorry. I'll shut up.
So, and once we get the video up and running, then we're going to start a new RSS feed for video. And we'll do video and audio at the same time.
Nice.
2 different feeds.
That's
Who just
cool.
sneezed?
Not a
Not me. No, that's very cool. Wow. So that's a lot of effort. So not only is it one of those things that you're going to need financial support for, or backing or assistance, but it also takes a lot of technical acumen, to be able to pull all that off. So why don't you tell us if you happen to have the URL or a place that people who might be listening who might want to donate or support might be able to do so.
Yeah, it's right there on the front page of our website, RAWRcast.com, and there's a donate button right there. I've actually kind of line itemed.
Down at the bottom right. No, I'm looking at it right now, so I'm just saying for the listeners, it's down at the bottom right.
The donate button is to the top right, yeah. But what was I going to say? Totally just distracted me. Oh, on the donate page, it actually kind of line items the features of us going to video and what I'm planning to spend the money on. And the great thing is that we're raising $700. We're already over halfway there. So the great thing is in all the 3 years that we've been doing the podcast, I've never asked for any money. So it's like, okay, guys, I'm serious.
You're like, all right, break yourself, fool.
Yeah, and they're coming through, and it's been amazing. So we have great listeners, great supporters. Probably the hardest part about all that is in the middle of raising this money, I lost my one last sponsor. So hopefully by the time that we upgrade to video, we'll be able to round out a new sponsor with a new feed. So,
have you guys looked at was it Doghouse Systems? They're pretty good.
Yep, they're actually here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area too. I know them personally. We are not their demographic, but they're nice guys, and they do a great job with the podcast that they do sponsor. So,
yeah, they support Scott Johnson in The Instance, the Old Republic edition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scott's a good guy. I actually just met him for the first time at this last BlizzCon, and I was amazed that he knew who the hell I was, but he did.
Everyone knows us, Topolina. No, actually, I met him at PAX East last year. Yeah, and they're actually sponsors indirectly, I guess, at the TORSyndicate of this podcast. So,
Yep.
So, anywho, well, very cool. Why don't we go ahead and take a few minutes to pay the bills? We'll hear from our sponsors at Guild Launch. We'll also get another exhilarating episode of BTG Beyond the Grind, and we'll listen to a little bit of Mandalorian Girl. The story's really starting to get good. The plot is thickening, and I wonder who lives. This podcast has been brought to you by Guild Launch at guildlaunch.com. Guild Launch is the premier guild host management system. They have over 2 million registered users. They support over 180 different games and have over 100,000 different guilds, clans, and corporations. For all of your guild hosting management needs to include PvP management, raiding, DKP systems, chat, and everything, please check out guildlaunch.com.
The Exploits of Mandalorian Girl, written and narrated by Nasha Tali. Chapter 2, Kashyyyk, Part 10. The next few days passed by in a blur. My head was reeling with all that had transpired concerning Cinca and Vel. I felt so betrayed and confused. I'd blamed everything on Vel, and though he had played along, ultimately Cinca had been the mastermind. I sighed and rubbed a hand across my face, wishing I knew where I'd gone wrong with her. I'd found her, rescued her, and raised her as if she were my own. True, I didn't have much to offer her, but I gave her all I had and would have done anything for her. From behind me I heard Aiden enter our quarters. "Everything's in order. The funeral will begin whenever you're ready." I turned toward him, tears threatening to spill over. "Give me a minute." Aiden walked over to where I stood and lovingly placed a hand on either side of my face. I closed my eyes and felt a tear trickle down my cheek, only to be wiped away by his strong yet tender fingers. "None of this is your fault, love." I took a deep breath. I know that. I just can't help but wonder if I had paid more attention to things, could the outcome have been different? Aiden kissed me lightly on the forehead. "Look at me." I opened my eyes and stared into the deep blue of his. You cannot control other people's actions. You can only direct your own. You can guide and nurture people, teach them the ways of the world, but you cannot force them to do your will. Ultimately, the decision is their own. It does not mean that you have failed. He gently placed his hand underneath my chin and raised my face, smiling at me. "I know you're hurt, little one, but it will pass and you will be stronger for it." At that moment, I wanted nothing more than to wrap myself within his embrace and let the world fade away in the safety of his arms, but I couldn't. I had a funeral to attend. I let him lead me out of our quarters and into the Kashyyyk evening air. The Wookiees had graciously allowed us to have a small ceremony for Vel. I'm not sure that my new Wookiee companion Shorcook understood why I wanted to have a ceremony for the man who had tried to kill me. He had betrayed me and helped Cinca in her treachery, but in the previous time that I'd known him, he had been a good companion and friend. I needed to do this. Aiden, Shorcook, Salova, Laquette, and I were the only ones at the site. Vel's body lay on a pyre, looking peaceful in his armor, almost as if he were only napping. I stepped close to his body, the others slightly behind me, giving me a small bit of privacy. I whispered to Vel's still body, "I know that something had to have happened. Something made you follow her. I'll find out what it is if it takes me a lifetime. I loved you like a brother, and because of that love, I forgive you. Rest well, Vog." Aiden stepped up to me and handed me a torch, the flame's heat warming my cheeks as I grasped it tightly. I lit the pyre with the torch's flame, and together, Aiden and I moved back to stand with the others. The flames crackled and spit as they engulfed the Mandalorian warrior's corpse. It was a beautiful evening, and the sounds and sights of the treetop city made an awesome backdrop and a fitting tribute to my fallen comrade. I didn't much feel like eating a meal that evening, so I returned to my quarters and let Aiden go ahead without me. I was in a strange mood, and I just wanted to be somewhere away from the crowds of people, somewhere private. I retreated to a nice warm shower and then stretched my weary body out on the bed. Aiden walked in just as I pulled the covers up around my naked body. "Aiden, I thought you were having dinner." He smiled, and I noticed his arms laden with packages. "I decided that I didn't fancy eating without you, so I got us something to eat here." Aiden walked over to the bed and began to open up containers of delicious-smelling foods, and I realized that maybe it wouldn't hurt to eat a little something. I sat up, tucking my covers around me, and smiled at him as he sat down on the bed beside me. That night, my dreams were disturbing. Something dark, something dangerous jumped out at me from the corners of my mind. I awoke in the wee morning hours with a scream, sweating and panting. Aiden was there to soothe me. I couldn't remember what I had dreamed. He held me close until I had calmed enough to sleep once more. He pulled me tighter, whispering words of comfort. I knew I was safe in his arms. The rest of my sleep was warm and peaceful, dreamless. For more information, visit my website at www.mandaloriangirl.com.
Transmission frequency secured. Beyond the Grind, Episode 23, Rakghoul Plushies, beginning in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody, to Episode 23 of Beyond the Grind, your podcast and resource for role-playing in the Old Republic, recorded on Monday, January 16th, 2012. I am your host, Baraslan of the TORSyndicate, the Old Republic's role-playing home to the galaxy's best scoundrel, scum, and scruffy-looking nerf herders, and sharing in the hosting duties with me once again tonight is the Raja of Roleplay, the Duke of Drama, the Sultan of SWTOR, all the way from Gamebreaker TV, The Republic, and Massively.com's hyperspace beacon. It's Larry Shaddoe Everett.
How's it going? Wow, I didn't know I had so many titles. It's
Well, when you have that many, I guess it's hard to keep track of them all.
It is, and I will be expecting my paycheck. Thank you.
Oh, and don't forget he's humble too, folks.
All right, totally humble. I am the most humble.
Achievement unlocked. Humble Master.
See how that worked? Not really.
Yes.
Never mind.
You get an achievement there for being humble. So, all right. So here we are, episode 23, which is really episode 23, not to be confused with episode 22, episode 23.
Crazy!
We are so going to confuse people.
I know, isn't that awesome?
I can see the email. I can see the emails now.
You have to go back and listen to episode 22.
Yeah.
Especially since we have, a lot of people not listening to that episode for some reason, which I don't know why. It was an awesome episode.
It was. They need to go back and listen to it right now. So if you're listening to this podcast, pause it, go back, listen to
there
episode
would be spoilers
20.
otherwise.
I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So go back and listen to that one, and then come back to listen to this one.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just wait. No, we shouldn't do that because it's like
it's like 30 minutes long or something.
Okay. So we'll move on. So news in SWTOR. We did get our first kind of official patch, the 1.1, the first big patch, SWTOR. So a lot of stuff in there that they just released. A lot of it was honestly just kind of character tweaking and probably kind of PvP tweaking, that sort of thing. But did get some new content and some other new things that would be interesting to those who like story in SWTOR. So something that it certainly is famous for and has done well at.
Yeah, especially if you're going to integrate the SWTOR story with your story, moving the whatever.
Correct.
If you're going to integrate that story with your story, there's some, good stuff that's coming out of this next patch.
Absolutely. We had some bug fixes in certain operations and flashpoints that simply will make them more feasible now, but also some additional story information, characters, bosses, etc., that will make them a little more interesting, as well as give it a little more replayability for those who've already been through it. So now you can look for the twists and the extra stuff that's there. Anything that stood out to you, Larry, in this last update?
Well, actually, the Flashpoint is the biggest thing for me. I think that's really, really interesting. If you read my interview with Gabe Amatangelo, the PvP, the Flashpoint, the operations lead designer. He has the longest title in all of Bioware.
Almost as many titles as you.
Yeah, almost. Except he doesn't have that whole Sultan title that I have. He he says that this operation, actually, the operation and the Flashpoint, but specifically the Flashpoint, is like a continuation of the overarching SWTOR story, and I think that's really incredible, and it also it pulls in some like odd, I won't say oddball, but just like some pieces of lore that maybe people weren't aware of, or because I certainly hadn't really heard of the Tyon hegemony. That's actually in lore. That's actually a part of lore, and the Tyon hegemony is the governing body, I guess, of the Tyon cluster, and they have kind of they're a power. They're a galactic power, kind of like the Hutts are a galactic power, and they've ran into trouble with Rakghouls. I'm not going to get not going to spoil anything for you, other than to say they ran into trouble with Rakghouls, and
yeah, because last time you were tossing out spoilers left
I know,
and right. I almost had to mute you and drop you off the podcast.
But at any rate, they have trouble with Rakghouls, and it's a continuation of the overarching story, which I'm also not going to reveal. But
Rakghouls are involved.
But Rakghouls are involved, and
who doesn't love Rakghouls?
Yeah,
Rakghoul Plushies.
They're so cuddly.
There's a business right there.
That's right. I'm starting one right now. That's what I'm starting. Rakghoul Plushies.
Yep. Like Beanie Babies with Rakghouls.
Yeah, can you imagine? That would be. They have like 4 eyes and big, huge monsters' teeth.
Aww,
it's so cute.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die. It's so fluffy.
So cute.
All right, so Rakghoul Beanie Babies. We like that. We're inventing things that happened in the.
Yes.
Although on that topic, I did have one of my guildmates point out to me that you can get a baby Tauntaun in the game as a pet, which has nothing to do with the patch, but just on the topic of things that are small and cute.
Wow, I really honestly did not know that you can get that as a pet. Now I'm going to have to go look for it.
Yep, it's out there. I'm not sure exactly the details, but I wouldn't tell you even if I knew, because that would be a spoiler.
Yeah, I'm guessing that you get it from the social vendor on Hoth.
Shh. What's wrong with you, man?
I don't. It's just a guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a guess. So
I can neither confirm nor
anything.
deny that Larry is correct or incorrect about his guess.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. What did you? Okay. What is your thing? What is your favorite thing coming from?
You know what?
What?
2 things I had that actually had very little to do with. No, one had a lot to do with role playing. The other was just something that had been irking me since the game launched. One was this whole thing about. And you noticed it most probably if you were a guild leader or a guild officer and you're in that screen a lot. But the guild screen, whenever you open it up, would not, it might say you have 17 guild members online, and you open the guild screen and show you 3, or it show you 6 or 9 or 8 or 2 or whatever. And it was never accurate, and you had to reset the whole UI to get it to show you an accurate listing of guilds and or friends, our guild members and our friends on the server. So. They say they fixed that, although I'm still having problems with it from time to time.
Yeah, see, the whole... Yeah, that whole social aspect of it honestly needs to be fixed. Just really needs to be fixed.
One of the other things they fixed was just real quick, was a glitch that had to do with sending text-only messages through their mail system from player to player that frequently would get eaten by the system.
Cool.
No, very uncool. Especially when you're using them for role playing.
Yeah, I know, it's not cool.
And sending them in character.
Okay,
and
that makes sense.
You spent 15 minutes putting it together, and you had to then go back and edit it because it has a character limit of 400 characters, which is ridiculous because you get letters from NPCs that are twice that long. So anyhow, you have to basically do your Twitter version of the message you want to send, or send it in 3 parts. And I had so many of those eaten by the system, and got so mad. But it seems that one actually seems to be fixed now.
So is that why credit farmers used to send you a credit?
I don't know.
That must be why.
If it was text only, the system could just nom 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 and munch it down.
Which, by the way, I haven't got one of those forever. I've not got a Credit Farmer email for a long.
I've gotten one since I played the game, and that's it.
See, I got quite a few of them.
Well, yeah, but you're the Sultan of SWTOR, so I guess.
Well, yeah, they like me, and they're like, "Gosh, he's got to have money." Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because everybody's just giving you, tithe money.
That's right.
Homage to the Sultan of SWTOR.
But yeah, so I haven't gotten since they did all of those bans. The quote unquote Ilum bans, but they weren't really Ilum bans. Since then, I have not got an email.
Okay, so that may have helped.
Yeah.
Good thing. Well, that brings us to the end of our light episode. If you guys want to hear more topics from the show, as well as get outtakes, please subscribe to us on iTunes or come download our full version of each show at our brand new domain name, beyondthegrind.org, not .com, .org. At this point, I normally ask you, Larry, for any closing remarks, but I think you've said plenty.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off now. You're done. So that's all that's left to be said at this point, guys, is go out, log into the game, have fun, and may all your stories be your own personal brand of epic. Night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Termination protocol established. Beyond the grind signal dark in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, folks, welcome back. So, yeah, this week in the news, what were you saying before, Baraslan? Something about there's been an announcement about kill banks and such?
No, you were supposed to talk about something else while I looked that up, so I could actually quote it accurately. So.
All right. So what about the big patch, Virtek, that's on the public server? I mean, we'll just talk about it briefly since I know that TORSyndicast and Darth Hater and a bunch of other great podcasts will really go into it in painstaking detail.
The news sites.
The news sites.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the few that really I haven't read anything about that patch as of yet. I've been running around doing everything else at this point, waiting until something becomes official.
Okay, so I'll talk about it briefly. I'm not even going to try to name which patch number it is because I don't know and I don't care. But it is on the public server right now, and hopefully it'll come out for us on the real servers. And long story short is it's going to do a bunch of bug fixes. It's going to do some different things, obviously, for different classes. But I think the most important things that people want to hear about is it's going to fix some of the game breakers. More specifically, for PvPers, it's going to put level 50s in their own bracket. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's been a big issue because this game seems to have a lot more PvP than most others just because the PvP is a lot more fun, I think, in the way they've done things. I'm not going to say it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely think it's more accessible. But one thing that has been ruining it over the past week, now that most or a large amount of people are making 50 and getting gear, is the fact that not only can you be level 50, but now you can get tiers of gear. You can get PvP gear, and the PvP gear gets 3 different tiers of uberness, whereas if you're like level 30 or level 40, you only get really one kind of bump at level 40, but anything in between there is just kind of bent, right? And so the 50s are just pwning everything, so they're going to try to put all the 50s in their own bracket for when they queue for PvP. That way you don't have like 2 people taking on 8 and then just winning all the time. What say you?
Yeah, that part I've heard of, and that part, to be honest, I'm fully happy with. Back during the early beginning parts of live and during beta and all that, when people would mention 50s in battle with everybody else, there wasn't an issue with it as much because there weren't that many 50s, and those that were 50 didn't have the great gear. Well, now it's starting to get to the point where there is, and it's starting to get really, really noticeable when someone can melt you down from full to nothing super quick, 10 times faster than anybody else can. You know that they're jacked up on gear.
Jacked up on gear, augments, and then all kinds of other stems, and who knows what else. Siren, have you seen any of the stuff that we're talking about?
Oh yeah, I could definitely notice a difference. Not only do 50s have the leg up in regards to gear, but they also have more talents and abilities unlocked than the lower levels. So when you go into the war zones and everything, even before gear was an issue, they were still having the ability to outperform those of lower level. And there's not really much of twink gear, so much that I've seen so far, to really give the lower levels a leg up in PvP. But one of the things that I saw in the patch notes for 1.1 that I'm really looking forward to is the fact that they're revamping Ilum. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to do any of the daily or weekly quests in Ilum, but
I did my very first weekly today, actually.
It's pretty silly. I don't know how it is on the other servers, but on ours, basically, the Republic and the Empire just show up and just flop the objectives back and forth. There's no killing. There's no nothing. Everyone's just focused on just getting the daily and the weeklies completed so they can be able to get their PvP gear.
And that's exactly what we did. We stood outside of the Republic base, and we blew up their turrets, and then we just sat there while like one Republic guy came out. It was like 20 of us. We just sat there, and no one killed him, and he like just drove by us. I'm sure he was a little nervous. Repaired it, and drove by us again, and repaired the other one, and went into the base. We blew him up, and then he came out. He did it like 15 times until we checked the block out our daily, and we went back to the spaceship. So yeah, it's definitely a problem. I mean, and I read it earlier, but I mean, I didn't really read it too thoroughly. I mean, did they say anything specific as to what they're thinking of doing to try to?
Well, they're going to be changing the objectives, so now you're required to actually defeat enemy players. In addition to flipping the objectives in the middle of it. And they're also making it so that they're changing the way that you get Valor and bonus Valor while in Ilum to give people more of an incentive to actually do the PvP aspect. So that's how they're approaching it in the 1.1 patch.
Yeah, but that change alone right there isn't really going to solve it, because now people are going to be trading objectives and kills. And that's all it really is. It's adding an extra step to the trading. The only problem right now really is population. There's not enough population at 50 who are trying to go to Ilum to do that at any given point. Because I know today I had two completely different experiences. One of them where there was one Republic, so we had to do exactly like Hammer was saying, but then he disappeared. But later on I went back because I had to jump in and help somebody with a quest. But I came back and there was Republic everywhere, and it was a slaughterhouse. There was no objectives being done. It was all killing, and that was it. We couldn't do an objective because they were beating us.
Yeah, and the thing is it's not really knowing the standard is always the problem, because it's an open PvP zone, right? Which is essentially like being on a PvP server at that point. But the thing is when they add these different game mechanics, you never really know what the deal is, like, because there's no way to communicate with that, and rightfully so, that Republic guy. But pretty much they kind of figured it out when he started repairing it and letting them blow it up, right? But then again, it just changes on a dime depending on who goes in there, and it becomes a gang fest. So this, hopefully it's a step in the right direction. But to your point, it's not necessarily gonna fix it. You're gonna have people who are gonna figure out how to circumvent the system no matter what happens, right?
That's part of the game. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I just turned 50 on Sunday, and I'm it's like starting the game all over, because when I hit 50, my first thing I did was I went and PvP'd, and I got my bags, and I got like a new lightsaber, so I got lucky, and I went and PvP'd, and all I did was just get melted like for 2 days straight, just melt, because now I'm going up against all these people who are 50 with gear, so I'm actually worse at PvP now at 50 than I was at 40 when I got my brand new PvP gear, if that makes any kind of sense.
Right. You know what, though? I thought that I actually just had, which was kind of funny because it's been around for years now, but is making it more of a timed objective thing. Like, you can only complete the objectives during certain times. That way it would kind of get people to all show up at the same times to do it.
Yeah, the problem with that is if people who live in different time zones have to work,
Well, no, I mean, like, if it's every 2 hours or every hour or something like that, I just mean, like, rather than having it available 24/7, any moment you can go and do it, it's only during, like, a time block, like 30 minutes worth of time every 2 hours or something.
Yeah, I mean, and, to your point, too, I think this is the reason why you always see the really elite players race to endgame and race to max out PvP or raid, yep, because they know that things are going to get nerfed. They know that things are imbalanced, and if they were lucky enough to get in beta, They know which classes are OP. They know which crafting skills are going to get the most money. So they race, they get to max level, they get all the PvP gear, and I know people now who are doing it, waiting, trying to beat the this patch 1.1 patch for Ilum now. I know people are trying to do it so they can get all their Battlemaster gear, so that when everything does basically become harder, right? That's all the Bioware can do, is they can just put steps in. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it makes sense, but I'm just trying to say at the end of the day, that's the result, is they're just making it harder for people to accomplish the same goal. So these other people, these elites, if you want to even call them that, are racing to get there so that, when that hardness, takes effect, they'll be sitting there looking pretty with Battlemaster gear or, good PvP gear, and the people who are coming up, it'll take them harder or longer to get there.
There's a whole entire mentality that goes along with being the in-game community, and people build up and prepare for that time to race to the end. I know Azimath, who's our chat moderator every week in the live chat room, he actually is in a top 25 World of Warcraft guild, and he takes off weeks at a time during expansions to level and get ready for raiding. So, not to knock any of that stuff, but those are the elite few, and BioWare and Blizzard both don't typically create the game or the current content for the elite few. They're creating it for the masses. So it's going to take more people to get to the end game before they start making overall changes to what's going to affect those in-game players.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And like I said, I think that it makes sense. I mean, you have to market to the largest amount, and those are the people that are going to be, quote unquote, having fun for the longest time. But it is a delicate balance, because the quote unquote elites or the guilds, there are these different demographics that stay in the game. The elites are going to stay in the game, and sometimes they're in a guild and sometimes they're not, right? But then you've got guilds that are of different levels. You might have elite guilds, but then you might also just have the social guilds. But those are going to have, numbers that are going to stay. It's really kind of hard or very rare, or getting more rare, to just see the casual players that come into the game and stay for, months and years, that are either ungilded or float from guild to guild, that still are consistent players, right?
You'd be surprised. There's people that have no interest in joining guilds. There's people in WoW that their entire WoW existence is going to Goldshire and humping gnomes. It's all what you make of it. We all pay the same $15 a month. It's all about what you want out of the game.
Yeah, well, I never played WoW, so you have to explain the humping gnomes.
It's a role-playing
thing. You don't
thing.
need to explain it any further than that.
Oh,
It's pretty straightforward.
Can we get a diagram just so I can see what's going on here?
That's not an analogy. It's not a tuna fish sandwich.
Oh,
Well, sometimes
that just
it is,
went
but we
somewhere
won't go there
weird.
either. So.
Alrighty then. Any other news in the community?
All right, well, I got some news that Virtek alluded to at the beginning that I wasn't quite ready because I just mentioned it before we came off the break. Okay. An interesting piece of news from Stephen Reed's AMA that he had a number of days ago. But they asked him a whole lot of questions. One of them had to do, though, with a popular or unpopular, as the case may be, topic. I know we've hit on this show a number of times, a sore spot with guilds that have to do with guild banks. So somebody had asked him the question, do you have any idea when we can expect to hear more details on guild banks / housing? And Mr. Reed responded with, guild banks pretty soon, but my definition of soon is probably different than yours. I'll say before E3 or PAX East. That seems fair. So PAX East is April, I think. So that's about as close as BioWare ever gets to giving you a deadline for anything. So within the next 3 months, they're looking at putting in guild banks, at least. He said, on the guild housing ship thing, I've had these conversations a few times with folk in person. The thing is, the basic idea seems simple, but the reality of doing it can be hugely complex. For example, and this is entirely me personally making stuff up, it's possible guild capital ships could be just open spaces for people to hang out in. Cool, but likely not enough for many people. So then you add on, say, the ability to customize the space. Then maybe you want those ships to move around, and maybe put them in orbit over planets to fight with other guild capital ships. Whoa, did we just add a space combat game? You see how it easily gets bigger. So the short version, he says, is something like guild capital ships sounds super cool, and the development team likes the idea, but there's a big difference between likes the idea and is fully developed in-game. So...
Well, James Dolan told me himself that they're working on it, so I know they're working on guild capital ships.
I think they are too. I think, like he said, what that ship's going to do, or what it's going to be, with is probably still.
I think that they need to put it into some kind of PvP element, kind of like like they had in Age of Conan in terms of having sieges, so you could build a keep, and then another guild could try to, of another faction, could try to siege.
Actually,
they could try to siege your keep. So imagine, if you would, there are certain PvP zones that you could only get to if you got on your guild ship and you went there as a guild or whatever, and then you did PvP or whatever, and then if another ship, and it kind of like the whole Alderaan Warzone. The other team, beats your ship in PvP, or you have boarding parties. They go back and forward. Your ship takes X amount of damage and you lose, and then the result of losing is you have to pay so many mats or so much money to repair your ship so you can go do it again. But then if you win, then everyone gets champion bags and credits or something. I mean, there are different things that you could do with it that I don't think would really be developmentally a large amount of effort. It would just essentially be another PvP zone, in which case they take the static map of which could look like the inside, for example, like the interior of a Viking station or whatever, the space, the space station, how that's fairly static. Just replicate that, and then allow you to customize a couple of things and say, there goes your capital ship, right? So you build it once and you just repeat it, and then you just build these scenarios just like Alderaan, in which case you're teamed up against this other one, and then you do boarding parties, in which case you go click on a thing, you go to a different ship. It's the same thing as transferring back and forth, trying to go to a flashpoint. You PvP, whoever gets rolled loses X% of their ship, they lose X% of money, and whoever wins wins stuff. I mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to say there are different things that they could do without having to go into too much developmental rigor in my mind.
How neat would it be to have a PvP, like the space battle type of thing right in the middle of it? Like your transport from one ship to the other is like even on rails still, like you're in your ship and you attack their ship, you assault their ship, and you land and take on their defending team.
Exactly. And I guess all I'm trying to say is there are ways to do it without building a whole bunch of new stuff. Where you could just take the things that they have, the game mechanics, replicate them, and do some simple skin mods to them, I guess. But then again, not being a developer, who am I? Anywho, anything else?
Just so you know, Reed also added as a comment on another question that was similar as far as priorities. He said, guild banks and guild housing of some type, ships are most popular as people know, are both on the list for future development. As always, it's a question of priorities and so on, but they're definitely discussed. I will say that guild banks are higher priority. Which makes sense, and it seems like it's the easier of the two things to put in, certainly, too. I mean,
it's 2012. I've said it before, I'll say it again. In 2012, it is unacceptable for a game this good, with this much good stuff in it, with this talented of a team, to deliver to us a product that does not have a guild bank. It is unacceptable.
Well, my thing is, and the thing I have my fingers crossed for is because it is such a basic component of games anymore these days, is that they're building it into a much bigger and much grander system that just it happens to be such an integral part of that system that they can't pull it out and put it in. Kind of like the character builders, they couldn't release a character builder online for you to play around and design how it's going to look before launch of the game because it was integrated with everything else. I'm hoping that's the case here, and we're going to get a really nice little package for guilds instead of just the guild bank being put in and that's it.
The functionality of guild management is all jacked up right now. I can't tell you how frustrated I am trying to change people's ranks and tab in between this window and closing that one. I mean, did anybody use it before it launched? Because I could have given them some feedback. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, and I love Bioware and I love all the guys there, but they dropped the ball. I'll say it. They dropped the ball on the guilds in this game.
They were busy planning for the guild deployment on the website.
Yeah, what is that? I haven't.
Needless.
And I'm not trying to beat them up because
there's some things
them,
about that would be handy, but I didn't even use the server they assigned me, for example. So really, that became meaningless to my guild. So.
Yeah, I mean, the two high-profile guilds, and we didn't even get put on the same server. So we don't have an enemy, and we don't have any allies. So whatever. My point is I would have much rather seen them spend that money, that time, and that developmental rigor on building me a guild management system, because I don't think the fact that there are guilds that want to play this game snuck up on them. I don't think that was like a surprise. So
well, the whole intention of the guild deployment, the pre-launch stuff, was to get communities built together and hopefully make them end up on the same server together. But in actuality, it didn't do that at all. And to your point, they could have taken those time, money, resources, and whatever. I think their web developers just are kind of bored because those aren't the same people in the great scheme of things. But the website's great. I like the guild pages on there, but the whole deployment system was completely needless.
Yeah, I understand and I can appreciate what they were trying to do, and I've spoken with Blaine Christine. I was at Bioware, when they were telling us this, and the intention is to try to load balance the server with in their mind, if they know that this guild's got 500 and that guild's got 500, then put them together, and let's say the server can hold 5,000 people. They do it this way, and so that they can try to figure out roughly how many tunes are going to get on one server. And for all intents and purposes, it was a smooth deployment. I would say it's one of the only successful MMO deployments I've ever seen. The downside of that obviously is I don't think they took into account some of the guilds that have multiple guilds, like Old Timers Guild.
Yeah.
They're on Sith Meditation Sphere with us, and they're pretty good guys, but they have Old Timers Guild, which is 3 words, and then they have Old Timers, which is 1 word guild. So that's really 1,000 people right there, right?
Yep.
So it's got the main and the alt guild, and then they got the Black Hand, which is like 500 people. So then we've been talking in very public on the forums, saying oh, we're gonna go up against Old Republic dads. Guess what? Different server. So we get there, and we had to find out over time who our quote unquote enemy is going to be. So I'm not bashing them about that. I'm not going to beat them up. But what I will complain about, and I will be very vocal, and I will not apologize to BioWare, to Lucas, to anybody, to EA, is they dropped the ball and they did not deliver an adequate nor acceptable guild management system. And in 2012, what they've delivered to us for guilds is unacceptable, and I just cannot wait for a guild management system that is worthy of BioWare, considering how amazingly good this game is in all other aspects.
Yeah. Right now, the guilds are basically a glorified, personalized chat channel.
Yep.
I mean, that's about all they do. So.
And there's no add member button. Come on, really? I have to type G invite? What?
Yeah. It should be like a right-click function.
Yeah, there's a lot of basics that are just missing, and in time they're gonna get put in, and the answer I always get back though is well, WoW didn't have it at launch. All right, I get it, but that was 7 years ago. This is 2012. But I'm not gonna beat them up because I do love Bioware. I'm a fanboy. I love this game. I think it's the best game I've ever played. I'm next to. The only thing that's come close to me is Mass Effect, and that's another BioWare game. So I am a big BioWare supporter, but I am very disappointed in this one thing. So I'll leave it at that. Any other closing comments about the news? All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap the show up. Stopolina, Siren, thank you so much for joining us. Can you briefly reiterate where our listeners can reach you guys and reach the different shows and TV shows and podcasts and stuff that you guys do?
All the stuff I do.
All that crap you guys.
Yeah. You can find RAWRcast, the Geek Culture Happy Hour, and coming soon, the Hot Taco Lounge, right there at rawrcast.com. RAWRCAST.com. And our guild, of course, is linked from RAWRcast, but you can find it at boundguild.com. Thank you so much for having us, guys.
Thank you so much for coming out and chatting with us. And Siren, again, thank you. Do you have Twitter or anything that you want to let people know about, or are you just kind of coasting under the radar?
No, Stompa said I'm one of the minions, and one of the real reasons why she invited me on the podcast is so that I would say our server name properly, since she is difficulty saying it.
And what is that?
Well, she has almost every week
No, wait, maybe we should have her
say
say it first, and then you come out and say it properly.
Yeah, so what server are you on, Stompolina?
So, Stompolina, what server is it you're on again?
Cannabis Ordo.
Cannabis Ordo.
Which is actually Canderous Ordo. But she's
okay, so she's on the marijuana server, and the rest of you...
You know what? It's close. People can still find us.
So they're on the Mandalore server.
I don't have it to read in front of me, so I can't butcher it. But that's kind of a bit on our show, is I butcher the English language in every made-up word in World of Warcraft, and now the Old Republic too, because I cannot put letters together very well.
Hey, you know what? If you got a gift, you need to run with it. So you just you keep on keeping on.
The other bit is my snorts, which obviously now you guys have heard a couple of times, and you didn't go, "Oh my God, what is that?" But yeah, our listeners play drinking games to my snorts, so it adds value.
Well, I'm just going to add some like Gamorrean sound effects in here later on, so it'll just fit with that very well. So
nice. All right, well, cool. Thanks everybody for coming out. If you want to get a hold of us, you can hit us at TORSyndicate.com. You can also hit us on Twitter at TORSyndicate. And if you want to email us, I believe it is ts02@torsyndicate.com. Thanks again. That's our show. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Later, guys. Wow.